Hi, I'm your host, Anand J. Sukadia, and this is the Limitless One podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds. How many of us had an experience where the universe put a major roadblock in our path for us to seek a different solution? Sometimes, when we don't take the hint, it'll present many roadblocks over time in order for us to learn these important lessons in life. Welcome to the Limitless One podcast. I am your host, Anand J. Sukadia. Our guest today had to experience multiple bouts of burnout and depression, a major skiing accident, and a torn Achilles heel rupture before he understood the path that he was on was not his highest one. Once he made a massive shift, his life has never been the same again. Janolof Elander is from Sweden. Janolof is curious, multi-passionate, energetic, highly intellectual, and an emotional empath. He boldly stepped away from being a follower of the general narrative and into being a creator of his own narrative one step at a time. And after having limiting himself for many years, believing that he could control every part of his life, having multiple burnouts and depressions over 10 years, he finally accepted the support from the universe and allowed himself to meet his deepest fears and shadows and move him towards the journey of true self-love. The Tantric path has been his journey for the last 4 years, supporting him to expand through experiencing more of life and himself through others. Janolof has a university degree in computer science and worked 20 years as a consultant as a software engineer, solutions architect, and he has also explored management roles on different levels. Now he has turned the cards and is stepping into working with leadership with a strong urge to support in facilitating transformation for people, teams, and companies towards healing themselves and remembering their own truth, being their own leaders, and trusting in their own inner authority. Welcome to the Limitless One podcast, Janolof Elander. How are you, brother?
Oh, thank you so much, Anand. I feel a bit nervous, I would say. This is actually my first appearance in a pod. And it's in a way stepping into showing myself a possibility. So yeah, I can feel there is energy moving in my belly. I can also feel it rising up in my chest. So yeah.
It's so important to feel the feelings of what we're going through and experiencing them fully rather than, suppressing
Uh,
them. And it's actually pretty funny because there's actually been quite a few people that have been first time podcasters on my podcast,
uh-huh.
and every single one of them has done many podcasts since then. So this is going to send a
Ah,
trend for you to open up a little bit
great.
more to sharing your gifts with the world. And right now, I think we've been interacting a lot with the energy of the throat chakra, especially we were in Egypt
Mm.
together a couple of months
Mm-hmm,
ago.
mm-hmm.
And one of the newest
Mm.
discoveries was a chamber that was opened up that's now considered the throat chakra of the pyramid.
Ah.
So after having that kind of experience, we realized, okay, yeah, now it's humanity's time for people to really speak their authentic self, their authentic truth.
Mm.
So yeah, it's beautiful that you came on the podcast today, and I'm excited to get into your story.
Thank you, and I'm so grateful for exploring it as well. And as you say, I'm also have a connection with my body, so I'm embracing whatever comes up as well.
Beautiful. So to set the
Mm.
tone of everything, what does living a limitless life mean to you?
Wow, that's a huge question in a sense. In one way, it feels like it's a huge question, but I will also say that it's the question of life. It's we are limitless, I would say. There are no separations. It's just an illusion. So we're actually part of everything. And when we truly realize that and can embody it, we become limitless, I would say. Of course, to have the ego and other parts that still want to be in this separation. it's actually I am allowing this fight. I'm still holding on to something, right? So I'm wanting to hold on to something that's not really true. All the stories and all the labels and the programs, the rules, whatever I've attracted in my life, because I believe that we're born actually limitless into this life, and then we add all these limits, and it's all about the journey of coming back to limitless, I would say.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And it's exactly what I've been thinking about lately. And, we just talked a little bit about identity earlier before the call started. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, we build these steps so that we can progress in life, and we learn and we grow and we take titles and we get education and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, are they creating more potential of becoming limitless, or are they keeping us limited from a perspective? So yeah, what is that journey in this life? And really what it is, I believe, is it's whatever you want it to be, and it's you get to choose and dictate the life that you live. So if
Mm-hmm.
we're in a movie, you're the actor, you're the director, you're the producer,
Oh yeah.
you're all of it. And you get to
Mm-hmm.
decide to be the victim, you get to decide the hero, or you can decide at any moment that, hey, this is a great life, but I want to pivot into something else. And it's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly okay. It's like not having the guilt for wanting to have change or wanting to go in a certain direction, because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we are living in this place of infinite possibilities. Why not explore if your heart calls to that exploration?
Exactly. And that's all about, I would say that was said as well, removing labels. Like, so why do I have all these labels? And I think that the label industry, so to say, has exploded. It's all you add labels, you have all diseases. It's like you label everything. You need to have a label on it because then we feel safe. We feel that we can fit in a box. So the more labels we have, the more boxed we actually are. And when we realize this, that, oh my, this box is so small, I can't even fit anymore. Start removing these labels and you actually expand. And then can we come to this place of being limitless by removing every label? So what labels am I actually using on myself?
Mhm. Yeah, it's
That's a
it's
good
quite
question,
a
right?
yeah, it's quite a rabbit hole to dive into, because if we remove
Mm,
every label that we have, right, what does that actually really mean? Can we
yeah.
live in a world that is as such as Earth, right? Or living in the
Mm-hmm.
3D world where we're working, we're supporting ourselves,
Mm,
we have roles as a parent or a
mm,
spouse or whatever it is, or a friend, right? So if we remove
mm-hmm.
all that labels, then how do we exist and still pay your bills?
Really, really,
Right?
really good question. Really good
Yeah.
question. Because as you say, it's like there are several parts of me. I have this body in my lifetime, right? But I can also look from the behind and see, okay, so I have this body and I'm actually, in a sense, let's call it stuck in this life, in this body. So I don't need to identify with the labels. Okay, some labels are maybe needed for others to actually understand me. So the name, I would say, how do I communicate with this entity, this individual? So there is a name, of course. So labels have a purpose. Some labels have a purpose, I would say. But as you say, also, if we remove every label, what's left? So then, or is that what limitless means actually? It's like I don't identify with any of the labels. And I can actually use this role, this character, and choose to play a specific role in the game. So what role am I actually playing? What character do I want to play?
Yeah, interesting. And what character do you wanna play?
Oh my God. Oh, I can feel actually this is interesting because I can feel there is fear coming up, because if I am really supposed to show myself to the world, to a character, okay, wow, this is so interesting. It's okay. So what really does limitless mean for me? What does freedom mean? What does liberation mean? And what's my purpose here? Right? It comes back to those questions, right? But I can also hear that there is an ego saying that you're not good enough, right? You're not supposed to be anyone. You don't think you were anyone, right? So it's what character do I want to play? Hmm. how alive do I dare be is a question that comes, right? And that comes into the tantric experience, I would say, also, because tantra is in a way, how much do I dare experience? How deeply do I really dare to experience life? It's one thing to actually watch at the roller coaster, and it's also another thing of riding it, but can I really feel every part of it? So how much do I actually dare feel? That's a super
That's
interesting question.
Yeah, that's so beautiful to get so deep into the moment in each moment and have that
Mm,
appreciation for it and looking at it from very different levels, right? How does my body
mhm,
feel? How does my soul feel? How does it all of it
mm,
come together? And there's so many different dimensions of that feeling. And yeah, there's so much dissection that can be done in each moment. But yeah, to really appreciate it, to truly be present, I think that's what it is
mm,
complete presence in
mm,
life in everything that you do. So when I'm talking to you, there's no place in the world I'd rather be than right here on this call at this time with you.
yeah,
Nothing else
exactly.
matters, right? To be
Mm,
fully
mm,
engaged. And I think that that's one of the challenges that I face as well as not trying to jam pack my day with doing 1,000 different things because I was okay, once I do this, then the next thing, then the next thing, the next thing. It's
mhm,
okay, like, when you're doing this one thing, do it with your full heart, do it with your full mind, and
mm,
do it with your full
yeah,
soul, and nothing
mm,
else matters, and then you go on to the next
mhm,
thing. But it's the levity in which you take it and living very
mm,
light like a feather and not feeling so much pressure or have your, nervous system go out of whack. I think that's really where, these practices
mm,
that we'll talk about in Tantra can help us so much in staying into
mm,
that present moment. But, yeah,
mhm.
before we jump into the tantric talk, I wanna hear a little bit about your background because you have a very interesting background, and, yeah, so it kinda sets the table for what we're gonna go into.
There has always been something nagging me. Um, I think even when I was a kid and also starting work and going to school, it's like, is this really it? Is this supposed to be what life is? I always felt that there was something more to it. But then I had a religious upbringing in a way, uh, not this deep upbringing, but it was religious parts of it. We had prayers every night. I went to sort of a Bible school, and it was, in a sense, interesting to hang out with the people. Just I had this nagging feeling about this prayer. It's like, I don't really feel aligned with this way of praying. So something was nagging me, uh, but in a sense, I accepted it. It was the way, uh, in a way, and questioning things, questioning parents and upbringing when I was a kid. I wasn't there to do that. Also, it's interesting because when I try to check in with my childhood, there's just a few things that I truly can remember. It's like a lot of it is blurry. Maybe because I haven't come in contact with it, maybe because I've hit it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I have parents divorced when I was around 5 or 6. Um, my father, actually, my mother actually divorced my father or wanted to divorce my father, but he was the one moving out. And recently, I actually came in contact with that I have that there still is some anger projected onto my father because he left me. He actually left me. I know that that's not the grown up story, but it's the child story, right?
Mhm.
So that was part of an important event, so to say, in my life. And then my mom took me and my brother and moved like 6 hours away from my father, and started a new life. That's the way it was were when I was young. It wasn't supposed to be every other week living in different parents. So I came to this new place. It's also interesting because I can feel when I check into it. I was quite numb at that time. Also, I think because of not speaking too much about feelings, Also having not being allowed to cry. No, you shouldn't cry, or no, you can't be angry, right? So showing feelings is like, okay, so you get angry at me if I'm angry, or I'm not allowed to cry, and so on. So suppressing feelings, right? So when I was in fifth grade, they started bullying me at school, and I know that especially my mother was engaged in this in a way and talked to the principal office and the school, but they denied everything. It's like the bullying didn't exist at that time. In a way, since I was taught to suppress feelings instead of expressing them, I really suppressed it. So I shut down sort of like every part of me. And 2 years later, my body reacted. So I got this intense disease called Crohn's disease that manifested in my belly, in my intestines. And it was truly super intense the first years. I was lying in hospital for, I think the longest period was 2 months. And I remember, well, I don't remember, I've heard from my mother sharing that it was actually just a few hours from not surviving. I had this infection in my blood, and nothing helped. Right. So my mother, who is actually a believer, I would say, she's open to energies and these kinds of stuff as well. She used the force, I would say, and made this prayer. And the next morning, the doctor came and said, "We have a new medicine that we want to try," and it actually worked. So just in a way, being part of that, it's like, is this really a coincidence, or is it not? I would say it's not a coincidence. I would say that nothing is a coincidence if we were going to go there. Then I had this part of me was kind of self-worth, self-confidence, and all these parts was kind of low. So I was still contracting. And also I didn't have many friends as well. So I was hiding, I would say, as well. And the hiding part has actually been a theme, right, in my life, which is a thing that I'm opening up to more now. Then I had this period in university that really was, it fit like a perfect glove. I studied computer science. It was perfect for me. I got to grow. I got to show myself. Yes, my ego was definitely getting feeded with all the results on these tests. But anyway, when I check in with it, I can see that I was so uncertain with things, and I used this this grades to boost my ego. And then I started working in '97 as an IT consultant. So my education was in computer science, so I became a system engineer, and I worked as a system engineer, also architect in different levels. I worked with leadership, and yeah, that's the main parts for. I've done that for 25 years, more or less. And also interesting part is that the first years, maybe the first 10 years working, it's like everything I did became gold. It didn't matter what I did. It was everything just became perfect. So I was in a flow, right? And then I made a choice to go into management around 2009, could be, at the same time as I separated from the mother of my boys. And that was actually a step that was towards, I want more money, instead of, I just love this job. I love this interactions with customers, creating solutions, being creative. Yeah. So I stepped into that space. And just 3 years later, I couldn't take it anymore. So I had my first burnout. I remember being so stressed that I was breathing high up, like in my chest. I didn't reckon that at the time because I thought it was normal, right? I'm a productive person. I do a whole lot of jobs. I'm engaged in, I don't know, 10 projects. no problem. Like, isn't this normal? So probably I would say I didn't have contact with my nervous system. So I had no idea what stress was or how stressful or stressless was. And this actually started a deeper process. I came in contact with meditation and started the yoga as well. But still, there was this holding on to the old story. So after a year of being home, trying to, I don't know if I tried really, but after having been home for a year, I started working again at the same place with the same things, more or less. Okay, I wasn't in management because I didn't feel I could do that. I wasn't ready for it. So I stepped into the same space, but I was actually contracting my engagements, right? And 2015, I had a depression, same thing, went home for a few months, contracting again, limiting myself. So the more I actually tried to hold on to this story that I created, the more I was contracting. And then in 2018, I had a skiing accident, an experienced skier. But I had an accident in the slope, coming from nowhere, so to say. And I was unconscious for about 15 minutes. And I hit my left side also because I had my back protection, I had a helmet and everything right. But I landed on my belly and on my left side. So I had, I think, 13 ribs, the eye, the face, and still I didn't understand. So instead of slowing down, I accelerated. So I was home for a week after this skiing accident before I started working again. And then later that year again, 2018, both in June and September, I had an Achilles rupture on the left side. Again, that's the feminine side, right? And
The
what does the feminine
universe
mean?
keeps throwing these nuggets at you.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. So it's the left side. It's about creating space. Yeah, you know. But I also got in contact that year with Tantra, sort of like an introduction to Tantra. I met this woman through Tinder who actually introduced it to me. She invited me to this festival and we met at the entrance, and that was the only time we met at that festival. So she was only the door opening. And then I met this beautiful man who owns a retreat just nearby where I live, who I spent a lot of time with, both in retreats, but also assisting and holding space in retreats. So it's been the tantric experience has been, let's say, my way of expanding and more or less awakening.
There's so much to unpack there. First of all, the fact that our minds can actually create disease based on our feelings, our emotions, our stress levels, and then boom, all of a sudden it manifests in the body, and it could bring us to the place of almost death. But what's
Mm-hmm.
also beautiful is that that same mind and that same spirit, that same energy, if reversed, can then heal the body. And which
Mm-hmm.
was the case with your mom doing her healing work
Mm-hmm.
and everything
Yeah.
like that. So it's so important for us to just take a step
Mm-hmm.
back to really understand that our mind, our thinking is the sole navigator for the direction of our
Mm-hmm.
life. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime we have a disease, it's always a good opportunity to ask ourselves, how did I create this in my body, rather than looking at outside circumstances or other people creating that stress for you, right? Is that everything is, if you take responsibility for your life, there's always that opportunity to ask ourselves, what am I doing in order to create this result? And then if you keep
Mm-hmm.
going forward in your life and you see that, you got that early validation for, the success in IT and your ability to create these
Mm-hmm.
systems, and then you kept going further and further and further until you realize, oh wow, I feel empty even though I'm climbing this ladder. And then you stayed in it, had one little, universal nudge with the accident. And then you had another nudge with the Achilles rupture. So the universe
Mm-hmm.
is always trying to direct you in the place of, your highest good. But when we continue to say, okay, thanks universe, but I'm going to continue to move forward, there's going to
Mm-hmm.
always be that friction and more friction, more friction, more friction until everything gets to a standstill. But it's very interesting to always
Mm-hmm.
manage and monitor our thoughts. How am I feeling in the work that I do? How
Mm-hmm.
am I feeling in relationships? Because if we're continuing to track the same situations over and
Mm-hmm.
over, the lesson yet has not been learned, right? Until we hit that breaking point, which you did.
Yeah.
And then you're like
Mm-hmm.
exposed to something new. And then boom, okay, it's a whole different avenue, but this avenue brings so much more fulfillment and so much more love.
What I'm associating to is from the Kabbalion, the first principle, the principle of mentalism, that all
Yeah.
is mind. The
All is
universe is
mind.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
all is mind. So it's all our creation. And as you say, it's like, okay, so if there is a friction here, okay, stop, create some space. What is this really? Okay, is something leaking? Is something missing? And also, I would say not to create too much mental space, just to feel into it and see if you can receive some information regarding it, right?
Yeah. I'll give you a quick
Yeah.
example of my life before we jump into the Tantra. Just
Uh-huh.
recently, in the
Uh-huh.
last couple of weeks, I was mentioning very briefly, but I'm looking to open up a second location for my business, or actually
Uh-huh.
start a new business, but very complementary to what I'm currently doing in
Yeah.
wellness. And I was looking at spaces and looked for like 3 months, found an awesome spot, ready to sign a lease, and then all of a sudden,
Mm.
the landlord is like, this use is probably not the best use because this is more office type building where we would need
Mm.
extended hours and stuff. So we're like, oh man, this perfect opportunity fell through. Okay, next opportunity. We keep looking, found another space which we love. Perfect. Like it seemed perfect at the time. Then the landlord's all ready to sign, move forward with us. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, another tenant in the building is like, oh, it kind of steps on my toes a little bit, even though it's completely
Oh.
different. And immediately I got so pissed off. I'm like,
Mm.
out of all the things that could stop us, like this
Mm.
inconsequential, tenant that has nothing to do with what we do is
Mm.
upset about it. And then like for 2 days, I was like super angry. And then I had to go inward to say, okay, how did I create this experience? And then
Mhm.
through a lot of brainstorming, I came up with the perfect solution, which makes things so much more easier and it saves me tons of
Mm.
money, but then also increases the value that I'm going to be providing. And it was like, boom, it hit me, but I had to create the space and not try to
Yes.
jam
Mm.
things that I want to get done warrior style all the time, but yet step back and allow the universe to kind of fill that space and be more of the
Mm.
wizard that allows the
Mm.
manifestations to bring towards me rather than me
Mhm.
pushing to create in the 3D world. I allow the
Mm.
5D to then allow the space to be created, which happens.
Mm.
So it happens all the time. And when we think we can bulldoze things, okay, I'm just going to get through this job and then I'm going to get to a vacation. I'm going to be perfectly fine. And yeah, you get to that vacation and you feel great. And then what happens? You go back to work and then you start feeling shitty again. So it's not the
Yeah.
vacation, it's that feeling of freedom or that feeling of excitement for something.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is what, we can have that ability to have that all the time, or we need some kind of outlet, whether it's through martial arts, through working out, to be able to let
Mm.
go of that stress through breath work, through tantra. These are things
Mm.
that can keep us in that elevated state the whole time. But yes, if you're going to continue to go into toxic environments, whether it's a
Mm.
bad job, bad relationship, there's not much you can do when you're not happy in those environments. So these are things that we always have to kind of look inwards to see, where are we spending our time? As that if it's not in
Mhm.
our highest purpose, then what are we really doing? Because life
I
is
agree.
short. Mm.
I agree. And what I also hear is this. Okay, so I remember just a few years ago when I reacted to this. Okay, oh, finally vacation. Is like, finally vacation. Wait a minute, what does that really mean? Okay, so we are actually living a life where in Sweden we have 5 weeks vacation.
That's
So we're actually
nice.
living.
That's a
Yeah,
lot
I know.
compared to what we
That's
get
a lot.
here.
Okay. Yeah. So it's actually the 5 weeks that we're longing for, or the weekends. So what's the rest of our lives then? What is actually working? Because it's like, no, it's all about living. Because I was in this survival mode for so many years. I was feeling I was only surviving, not living. So is this really life? No, this is not living. This is surviving. So actually what you're also saying is like, can I take responsibility for myself? Yes, there is fear and you need courage to make changes. Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
But that also comes to me regarding my second burnout also in 2009, and there was a breaking point actually after this burnout, because I was in this space. I can't hold on to this story anymore. I need to let go. It was so painful, but it was so clear. It was like a lightning from the sky, that I can't stay on this path. It's you choose. It's either live or die. Your choice. So the breaking point was stepping out to an unknown space that I spent, I don't know, contemplating, not doing too many things, more being for a year.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's I think everybody reaches that, I guess, breaking point at different times or different experiences in life.
Mm,
But I think that a lot of people, myself included in the past, is like diving into that fear of the unknown, that ocean of what we don't
mm,
understand, right? Like
mm.
what there's a term called comfortable misery. So when you're in this box of being
Uh-huh,
in a job or being in a situation, relationship that
uh-huh,
even though it could be miserable,
um,
you know that you can get by. But once you
mm,
start stepping outside of that, oh, if I leave this relationship, then I'll be single. And then, oh man, I have to start this whole process again. What if I don't meet
mm,
the right
mm,
person? What if I waste all these years and then don't find,
mhm,
maybe I'll
mhm,
just like try to figure this thing out. But sometimes these things, yeah, they can be figured out and they can be, if both people are on the same page where they want to improve and grow together. But
mm,
sometimes it's not the case. So it's like leaving this ship that has a bunch of holes in it, and you're constantly getting a bucket and trying to dump out the water that's filling into the thing with buckets, and getting this water out of a sinking ship, whereas there's a
mhm.
brand new ship right next to you that doesn't have
Yeah.
those issues, and you can move onto that ship and then sail in a different direction, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more we spend time just trying to get back to homeostasis
Mhm,
versus
mhm,
trying to live a life of thriving onto greater
mm,
heights, that's what I think
yeah.
a lot of people are just trying to get back to zero. And
Mm,
when we're doing that, then life becomes a struggle. When we're
mm,
living past zero and into the stratosphere and keep expanding ourselves and being happy, looking at every day as the weekend, looking at every day as vacation,
mm,
what would
mm,
that look like? Yeah, it might not be
mm,
able to be done like, today or tomorrow, but there's
mhm,
a path
mhm,
forward for sure. And that
mm,
fear, if we can just take little things that we step outside of our comfort zone and realize
mm,
everything is only better on the other side of
mm,
that unknown. And at least
mhm,
if you didn't like something, at least you have the knowledge of direct experience. But when you don't know you like something and you say, oh no, that's not for me,
mm.
you're limiting yourself. And this is the conversation that we have on this podcast is about, yeah, why limit yourself
Yep.
when there's so
Yeah.
many things that we can experience?
I agree. And what I also hear is like growing, that's natural, right? Just we're just walking trees in a sense. So we need to step into an environment that is healthy for us, and we need to reach for the lights. Okay, it's cliche, might be, but it's actually true. So how can I experience? How can I allow myself to grow? Okay, so what do I need to experience growth? Well, I need to expand. That's growth, right? So, are there any parts in my life where I feel a contraction? That's the opposite of growth, right? So, it's either you grow or you die. That's what Tony Robbins used to say. So, it's your choice. If you're in a space that is dark, you're a lot of other trees around yourself, and you don't get the space, is that really the environment you're supposed to be in? Or can you choose another environment?
Yeah.
So it's actually all about responsibility, our own choices. We're actually the masters of our lives. That's it. We make our own choices all the time, even if they're unconscious. We make the choices all the time.
100% agreed. And one of those paths that you can look towards, or some practices that you can do, is tantra, that can get you back into the body, get you into the feeling of the
Mm,
feelings that you want, and then grow yourself and keep you outside of your
mm.
comfort zone. So let's get into that a little bit. What is tantra and what isn't tantra?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say that a general image of what tantra is that it has to do with sex. And yes, it can have to do with sex, but it's not about sex. I think it was Sting who introduced tantric sex many, many years ago. Yes, of course, you can experience tantric sex, but it's more experience and expand. So expand through experience. So can I allow myself to feel these contractions? Just the other day, I was thinking about this. Okay, so Wim Hof. this is an interesting example, right? Because cold bathing might be uncomfortable, right? We all actually want to contract. That's the reaction. Can I allow myself to relax in this contraction and instead let it expand? So can I allow myself to feel these contractions, even if it's just a cold bath or just a cold bath? So it's all about experiencing every part of myself and experience these contractions. I mean, if I just check in with my body, I can feel that I have something here that's contracting, right? I know that I have, we can call it issues with my heart. I have fear of opening my heart. So there's been a huge protection created here, right? So it's all about, okay, I acknowledge that this feeling is here. It feels like it's here, right? So can I just allow this to be there? Not necessarily that I like it, but can I allow it? Can I create some space for it? Which means that I start experiencing it. And then the next step, can I accept it? Which means that it's more of a neutral feeling towards it. It's like, okay, I feel you, I see you, even if it's feeling somewhere in the body, or if it's fear coming up, or if it's sadness coming up, or if it's anger coming up. Can I just feel it? Really, how much can I really dare feel this? Because when it becomes too much, it's a possibility for it to contract again, right? This is actually working with traumas, I would say, as well. Because if we experience too much too fast, we get re-traumatized. So this allow, accept is 2 steps towards something. And I would say that the next step is embrace, which also I associate to more self-love. Can I really embrace this and not judge this thing? Can I really even love this, every part of myself? And this allow, accept, embrace is something that I've caught from Richard Rudd, who is the father of Gene Keys. And I love the way that he explains it. Like, can I create some space for these contractions that I feel? Can I allow myself to feel them really? And just checking in with the body. Okay, so what things are actually, oh, now it's something in my belly as well, saying, hey, okay, now it moves up here. So can I just, it opened up here. Oh, okay. So can I just check in with the body and just feel these things moving or contracting? And then there are a number of different things to come into deeper contact with this, because I was a headless chicken. I don't know if that's the word, but I was up in my head 100%. I didn't feel my body. I wasn't interested in my body in that way. I didn't listen to it. So how do we actually start listening to our body? It's one step at a time. And then we can get help from different kind of exercises. Breath work is one thing. I don't know if it's called liberating breath work. Yeah,
There's so
you
many
can
different
have
types of breath work.
there's so many different ones. Yeah, holotrophic breath work with Stanislav Graf is one thing, for example, which is actually coming in contact with these deeper things. So start this journey of coming into deeper contact with the body, because what actually I recognized, there was a man who actually stated it so interestingly. It's like, we need to create these data points in our body. It's like, yes, of course. If I don't have contact with every part of my body, it's like they are numb or the signals aren't getting through. I'm not feeling them. So it's all about embracing and feeling as much as I dare. And yes, you start slow and then you take one step at a time. And it takes time, but it's so much worth it, I would say.
Yeah, we're like a big old onion, and we got to continue to
Yeah.
unlayer all these different levels of the onion, because there's so many emotional, physical, spiritual
Mm. Mm.
layers to us. And when we're stuck or contracted, the only way to find that is to unpeel. Oh, there's a little spot that needs a little love, a little healing, a little of self-awareness, and then we can go. But there's never a time where we're 100% healed and like everything is good. There's always this human experience is about contraction, and expanding and always just,
Yeah.
getting to the place of awareness. And once awareness
Mm.
happens, oh, that's why my throat always feels a little bit
Hmm.
contracted, is
Hmm.
because I haven't speaking, or I don't speak very much about the things that I want to, or I feel like I'm getting censored, or even like when I was a kid, somebody told me I couldn't sing well. There's always these things that'll come
Exactly.
to us
Yes.
when we're on this
Yeah.
path of healing and understanding ourselves. All the reasons why we feel contraction, they start coming up and they get unlayered, and then they can be released
Hmm.
on
Mm.
many levels. So, I asked you uh, on our pre-call, it's like, okay, we continue to do this work in this, body movement, emotional release techniques, all these things.
Mm. Mm.
Is there ever a place or time where you feel like, okay, I put it in 10 years, I feel completely healed?
Uh, Oh wow, that's interesting. I've been on this deeper journey for 4 years,
Mm,
and I can see that what I hear is like you're going quite fast. Is what I hear. It's like, okay,
mm,
what does that mean? I have no idea. There's no reference. So it's all about starting this, creating the space for it. And no, I don't think that we will ever get finished in a way. But the thing is that getting more conscious, self-aware, and also coming to this space where I know that there are rhythms. Actually, the Kabbalion is the principle of rhythm, that everything swings, right?
mm,
It's like, okay, I'm aware that things swings. Can I go beyond that and actually watch the swing? It's like, okay, so today this is how I feel. Can I allow it? Or do I go into the drama of the feeling, and or how do I actually want to experience it? Of course, it's I can consciously choose to go into experience or go out of it. So I think it's about learning the dynamics, I would say, of it, because there will always be things coming up. And I would also like to say that one way of starting is actually when you feel a contraction, it's like just stop for a while and feel it. A contraction can come at any time. When you listen to a podcast, or when you listen to a book, and watch on TV, or anything, suddenly you can just feel this contraction. It's like stop for a while and just feel it. Can I feel it? Because I use this technique in everyday life. So I don't only go to retreats or hold space in retreats. I use these tools in everyday life, trying to just feel these things and relax. Actually, the first step in mental training is actually relaxing the body. So I think it's all about relaxing, creating some space in the body.
mhm. And are there certain exercises that you do other than breath work to start relaxing the body? So I know there's tension that's being held in all different places, right? Some people hold it in their back, in their hips, in
Mm,
their
mm,
calves. There's so many different places, and I'm sure each one has a different meaning to each individual.
mhm,
But is
mhm.
there some good methodology that we can share that would help people in kind of getting a little bit more into their bodies?
I would say that some exercises that have helped me is exercises that are taken from Wilhelm Reich. He is, I think he's early 1900s, and he was much about moving the body, getting in contact with the body and the psoas muscle, and also using breathing, movement, and sound, like vibration. So if I just sit here and I feel into my body, and I just, okay, so there's a contraction here, can I add some vibration to it to see, which means it starts vibrating? And I can actually, it's like the Aum thing, which is actually a vibration that starts from the root and actually goes all the way up to the third eye. So the Aum is actually a way of moving energy. So one thing is actually using sound as well. There are some body postures that are interesting, of course. It's hard to share in a podcast, I think, but let's think about that, how to possibly share that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would say shaking as well.
Yeah.
Standing in with your knees bent, and with your tailbone just hanging right down, and relaxing, and just starting to like jump upside down. You can feel some things and just add a sound to it.
Mhm.
Because when you start to jump and vibrate, you help the body to get in contact with these things, and you add sound to it. You actually also might get in better contact with it. So it's these small things that can actually help. What I did just actually before the podcast here, I could feel that I had something that was stuck in my body. So I sat out on my terrace and I just relaxed. And then it's an interesting thing. I just went to feel my third eye, and then I opened up my third eye to receive. So it's more, can I receive? Can I release this and create some space for these contractions
Yeah.
in different methods, right?
Amazing. Yeah. And, we talked about it prior is like anytime animals, they suffer some kind of contraction or some kind of trigger,
Hmm.
some kind of fear, they just shake it off. So they're not
Yes,
holding these emotions
exactly.
in their body. They shake it
Yes.
off and they let it go. And
Uh-huh.
they're ready to rock right after that. It's like same thing
Uh-huh.
with us.
Yeah.
It's like we need some kind of physical movement. We
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
vibration, sound. These are all things
Yeah.
that help us. And I think Robert Grant was saying that geometry is music suspended in matter, essentially.
Oh. Yeah, I know. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's all vibrations, different scales of frequencies and vibrations. Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I've done some work on the psoas. It's really
Uh-huh.
one of the keys to our chi and our energy. And so
Yeah.
much of our, contraction and trauma and so many things get stored in that psoas. And, when you go to a massage
Mm.
therapist or you go to some kind of healing, nobody's getting
Mhm.
into that psoas. It really
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
deep into it.
Yeah.
It's by your groin and your private parts as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there are some things you could do. I know there's this one little exercise thing. It looks like it's called the so right, and it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
psoas. It's
Yeah.
a hard plastic thing. It has two mounds, and you lay on top of it, and those mounds they dig into your psoas.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes when I'm on there for 5-10 minutes, I feel this energetic vibration moving through my body because so much
Yeah.
contraction is being held in there. And sometimes I
Mm.
get
Mm.
emotional. Like sometimes, I'll just like start thinking about what I'm grateful for, and then I'll just get real, like
Mm.
teary eyed or whatever. But yeah, the
Mhm.
psoas is kind of the key to unlocking a lot of the tension we hold inside the body.
Yeah. I would also suggest if there is support, if you need support in something, there is body work facilitators might
Hmm.
help you as well. I did a tantra therapy training actually earlier this year, and it's actually a lot about body work and energy work because we have energy. We're all built up of energy, right? And I know, well, I've heard that I have a lot of energy in my hands, right? So okay, so I can feel it more and more. I was walking this morning in my forest, and I was just holding on to this, and I was okay, I feel something here. Okay, so there's some energy here. So it's all about feeling and facilitating energy. So an energy worker actually is more or less a vessel to enable your life force energy to move, to enable your healing abilities. It's not about being a healer. It's all about facilitating your healing in
Absolutely.
different modalities, right?
Mhm. And I truly believe all of us are healers and we could be our own healers. And the
Yeah.
people that have become energetic healers, they've only awakened to their dormant abilities, which all of
Mm.
us have. It's just like they're showing us
Hmm.
through their work that we can do it as well. So when we all
Hmm.
become healers, then the world starts getting healed. But if we're holding on to a lot of pain, trauma, then how can anybody else do the same if we're not willing to let go of our own? So it becomes a situation where each of us become responsible for letting go of our pain and our past and moving towards a place of love. And a lot of it is through letting go a lot of this the emotions that we have stuck inside of our body. So yeah, the work through tantra, and there's so many different facilitators all over the world
Hmm.
that are doing it, and finding people that you really connect with is so important. And anyone who is empowering you to unleash your power, those are the ones that I
Hmm.
would suggest you move
Exactly.
towards, rather than ones like,
Yeah.
oh, I have the powers and being
Hmm.
around
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
you'll
Hmm.
get those powers. No, it's not
Hmm.
not the case. Those
Yeah.
are scam
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So Janolof, thank you so much. We've learned so much about this. So like, tell me, so what's next coming up in your
Mhm.
life now that you've kind of moved past the place of doing things out of just because you wanted to stay in IT, then obviously you left, you started a new path of opening yourself up and not having these expectations of something that is not, in alignment with you.
Mm.
So where do you see yourself going from here or wanting to experience?
I would say I'm going to continue this tantric journey, experiencing more and more of myself in different contexts, and embracing myself more and more. We can call it self-love, right? So it's a journey to self-love as well. I actually just recently I stepped out of working again. I started the company like after this pause that I did 2 years ago, and that's the first step of being a creator for myself. So I started this company, and then I was more in this sort of like the same business. I was a consultant still, but could see that I was during the last contract that I had, I was transforming from being from IT to being more people oriented. So I was actually working with integration, technical integration, but I was actually transforming to working more with people integration. So I think it's all about integration. So what is integration? I would say for two technical systems to integrate, they need to be very intimate with themselves. And in that way, they create some symbiosis, right? They become one. So what about us people, us humans? I think that it's all about intimacy. And intimacy is not about sex, it's more about creating a psychological safety. It talks about a lot about psychological safety in companies nowadays. So what I did now is that I'm stepped out of this consulting business and stepping into the next step of being my own creator. So I have some notes everywhere at the moment, and I have created so many connections uh, regarding this. And it's all about stepping into and supporting companies in their journey to becoming one and really becoming one. Because it's all about the individuals and it's all about integrating the individuals. It's a culture change. And there is a lot of support needed for that, I would say. So I have started network with a few people who are having the same intention of stepping into a space and supporting companies in their journey to, let's say, becoming one. My company's name is called Reimagine One, which I think is what we need to do. We need to reimagine that we are one, truly. We are not separated, we are integrated, completely integrated with everything.
That's so
So
beautiful.
that's, yeah, I know it's, but I feel it's all about stepping in, showing myself, stepping into the space, stepping into the circle. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm playing with at the moment.
Beautiful. Yeah, these organizations, they're so highly efficient from the mental
Mm.
state, but from the
Yeah.
heart space, there's a
Hmm.
big aspect missing in a lot of
Mm.
corporations. And when we could bring that heart and mind together, that's when
Yeah.
we can,
Yeah.
really affect positive change. And
Hmm.
what if every single person in an organization is not only bringing their technical skills, their minds, but also their heart and their heart to be
Mm.
fully
Oh.
open? What kind of world can we create and what kind of mission can each company then reimagine to create an influence in the world? And this is the world that
Hmm.
we are trying to create in, rather than the world of this is how you should think, don't step out of the line, we only do things one way here, and
Hmm.
if you don't comply, then you're some kind of extremist. So it's in a very interesting time that we're living in. So many different organizations or systems are breaking down, but rather than discard of them completely, it's like, okay, there's some bones here, there's some structural elements that work. Why don't we just infuse a little bit of heart space, and boom,
Hmm.
it
Totally.
can, it's like this dry barren
Mm.
land, and then all of a sudden you have flowers growing in there, and one flower pops up, two flowers, then 10, 20, 100, a million. That's
Mm.
how it happens, with a little bit of momentum. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's beautiful to see yourself and so many others and so many that have been on the podcast. They're a part of this new world that we're all creating together. And yeah, it's an
Hmm.
honor to be connected with you, to spend some time with you, and to consider you like a brother, because the time we spent together in Egypt was really sacred, and yeah,
Hmm.
just like a once in a lifetime experience. But again, we could continually create more and more of this magic, the
Hmm.
more we step into our own heart space.
Yeah. I love that you added the heart to it,
Mhm.
because it's essential. And it's essential also to be able to allow ourselves to show our hearts and to show ourselves, to be intimate, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be transparent, to be everything, because it's all about removing these contractions and opening up for limitless,
Absolutely.
limitless one, right?
One more question. What
Uh-huh.
does God mean to you?
Oh wow, I would say that it's not anything that's connected to the religious beliefs that we have been taught. I would say that this might sound strange, but I think we are our own gods. We are our own creators, I would say, and it's back to this all is mind. It's what we put in our programs, in our minds, in our belief systems that are limiting us. So the universe, the God, it's like we are all one. We're all the same. It's like when I support someone else, I actually support myself.
That's beautiful. How can we learn more about you if anybody wanted to learn about more of the work that you do or want to learn a
Hmm.
little bit more about Tantra?
Oh wow! Let me share some links.
Okay.
If you feel an urge to connect, and I'll send some links. I actually don't have a website yet, which is all about stepping in, showing myself again. It's like I haven't had the words to actually describe myself, whatever that is, so what I'm doing or what I'm contributing with. So let me share some links if you're interested to connect. Yeah.
Beautiful. Janolof, thank you so much for sharing your magic and your story.
Thank you, brother.